All right, everybody. So we're back here, and this is the impact point that you see. That was pretty much the depth of the dent below or above the body line. Now I'm still using the off dolly technique here. I do want to move the core and the deepest part of this dent along much faster than just pushing it at this point. So essentially, I'm holding pressure in the center and I'm still working the body line below until I start to feel some of that tension and that pressure release from the depth of this dent. If you can kind of imagine just holding something nice and tight, causing tension up above it while you're trying to slap the lower part and knock the lower part, relieving tension off the edges. Now you can do this around the circumference of the dent as well. So, there's a lot of specific dents where you'll want to push the center and just kind of slap around almost the volcano that comes up on the circumference of the dent. But now you can see here that I'm actually getting this thing to move rather easily. Here's a close-up shot, and you can kind of see I'm getting that volcano effect there just a little bit. But we're down to almost a nickel size impact point right there in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and slap the tension from around the volcano, if you will, around the dent, kind of relieving that pressure. And at this point, I'm not holding any pressure. So I think we've moved the body line well enough that the dent is nice and stabilized. And now I'm just actually doing some soft hit knockdown work, just trying to get the pressure off from around the deepest part of the dent. And after using that, we're going to go in with some pinpoint precision and actually use the polished metal tip on this blending hammer. This is one of my favorite hammers. It's one from Bryce Rockhill, and he did an amazing job with the steel tip. Rarely ever do you have to polish it, but back to the dent here. As you can see that I'm actually going to be going in and doing a little bit of pushing now. So no dolly work. We're going straight to pushing, still using the soft tip. I'm trying to get these big over molding style pushes to basically iron out the deepest pit in the center of this damage. Back to a little bit of off dolly work. Now I'm holding some pressure up top while I'm slapping the bottom. Just need a little bit of that effect to cause that metal to flow away from the bottom of the dent. Now we're kind of working the volcano edge again, releasing some pressure from around it. This is something that you're going to see. It's like rinse and repeat when you're working a deeper dent. You're going to push it up, push it up, push it up. That hole is going to continuously get smaller, and then you're going to tap and lay it down. So what you're seeing here is the off dolly where I'm holding the center and I'm slapping the edge. And you can see it's just minimizing the size, the depth and size of the center of that deepest impact point. Going in for a little bit of pinpoint precision knockdown work. That's where I love the hammer and knockdown. You can really just very, very precise. Each tip that I'm using while I'm doing knockdown work on this dent serves its purpose. And this nylon knockdown is serving its purpose right now. So just kind of releasing the pressure again from around that deep impact point. And each time we go into one of these sessions, you're just going to notice it's going to continuously get smaller and smaller and smaller until we've got it completely worked out. Now I need a little bit more pressure. So the depth of that dent, the fulcrum point that I had was not good enough. This is the one that I want. I'm going to be right behind it, coming in from the edge of the fender. And I'm kind of using this to overmold and iron out that deepest pit from that angle. You can see we're just down to kind of like a dime size pit. And of course, we got a little bit of cleanup work around it, but we need to iron that out before we even think about getting into the cleanup work. So now you're going to see where I'm getting some big leverage. Big leverage shots here. And I'm right in behind it, and I'm closing it in. I'm kind of turning it into a high spot is exactly what I'm doing. But while I'm doing that, it's molding out the depth of the dent. You only want to go so far with this. You go far enough, if you start feeling some major resistance on the core where it's flexed out as far as it can go, you need to go into a hammer knockdown session. The problem with that is you could crack it. Like if I was to crank through the deepest part of that dent and not go into this knockdown session at this point, I could have cracked the center of that paint. So you got to be careful with it. But as you can see here, as I'm laying down around that impact point, it's getting smaller. We probably reduced the size of that thing, or the impact point right there, in that round by about 70%. So now we still got that deep, deep spot there going right back in. I've released the pressure from the outside of it, and now I'm going right back in for a big overmolding push there. There you go. Now you're seeing a lot of the center. See how easy that was? I mean, if we would have tried to go all the way through with that the first time and push it all the way through like that, we probably would have cracked the paint. But after one session of pushing it up and laying it back down, we were able to go in there and just mold a lot of that deepest pit out. That's part of what makes this a fast technique, you know. We had the off dolly to help us out at the beginning. We flowed that metal out quick. We got right to the meat and potatoes of this thing. We got to the impact point, and now we're quickly ironing out that impact point. Probably the most time you're going to spend on these dents, in fact, the most time you will spend on these dents is going to be the finishing work. I mean, that's always the most time-consuming, and essentially it's because you're making tons of little pushes to finish this thing out. But as you can see here, this is the level that we are at this point. We've definitely ironed out the deep part of this core, and I'm going to have to say that we are 75% complete, and I am 10 minutes into this repair.